Hello, future real estate pros. Scott McGillivray here. I've spent my career helping people build wealth through property, and it all starts with a solid foundation. For you, that foundation is passing the Colorado Real Estate Broker exam. Think of this exam not as a hurdle, but as your first big investment in a rewarding career. It's your ticket to helping families find their dream homes and investors find their next great opportunity. This guide is your blueprint for success. We're going to break down everything you need to know, step by step, so you can walk into that testing center with confidence and walk out ready to start your journey in the exciting world of Colorado real estate. Today is June 13th, 2025, and the market is full of potential. But before you can tap into it, you need to master the rules of the game. The Colorado Broker Exam is designed to ensure you understand the laws, contracts, and ethical duties that protect the public. It might seem daunting with all its topics, from water rights to trust accounts, but don't worry, we'll tackle each one together. My goal is to make this complex information simple and easy to remember. We'll use clear examples and memory tricks to help the key concepts stick. This isn't just about memorizing facts, it's about understanding the why behind the rules so you can be a knowledgeable and trustworthy broker. This guide is structured just like the exam itself, covering the 8 major knowledge areas. We'll start with the big picture, the role of the Colorado Real Estate Commission. Then we'll dive into the practical details of getting your license, managing relationships with clients, and handling the all-important contracts. We'll cover the nitty-gritty of financial management, like trust accounts, and the process of closing a deal. Finally, we'll touch on those unique Colorado-specific topics that can trip people up. Consider me your personal coach, guiding you through your training so you can ace this test. Remember, every successful real estate career begins with passing this exam. It's the gateway to everything else you want to achieve. So, grab a notepad, get comfortable, and let's get to work. By the end of this guide, you won't just be prepared for the test, you'll have a strong understanding of what it takes to be an excellent broker in the Centennial State. Your future clients are counting on you to be an expert, and that expertise starts right here, right now. Let's build your future, one section at a time. First up, let's talk about the boss, the Colorado Real Estate Commission. Think of the commission as the referee in the real estate game. Their main job is to protect the public. They do this by creating and enforcing the rules that all real estate brokers must follow. The commission is made up of 5 members who are appointed by the governor. 3 of these members must be active real estate brokers with at least 5 years of experience. The other 2 members are from the public and cannot be in the real estate business. This mix ensures that the rules are both practical for brokers and fair for consumers. They're the ones who can grant, deny, suspend, or even revoke your license. The commission has a lot of power, and you need to know what they do. They investigate complaints filed against brokers. If a client feels they were treated unfairly or a broker violated a rule, they can file a complaint with the commission. The commission will then investigate the claim, hold hearings, and decide on a punishment if the broker is found guilty. Punishments can range from a simple letter of admonishment to a fine, required education, or in serious cases, taking away your license. They also approve the contracts and forms we use, ensuring they are balanced and legal. Knowing their role is key to staying out of trouble. So, what can't the commission do? This is a common exam question. The commission cannot handle monetary disputes between brokers. For example, if you have a disagreement with another broker over a commission split, you can't go to the commission to solve it. You would have to go through mediation, arbitration, or the court system. They also don't get involved in landlord-tenant disputes unless a licensed broker's actions are in question. Their focus is squarely on the conduct of their licensees. Remember their mission to protect the public by ensuring brokers are competent and ethical. Here's a simple way to remember their role. Think pie. The commission protects the public, investigates complaints, and enforces the rules. They don't set commission rates, that's always negotiable between you and your client. They don't write the laws, the state legislature does that. The commission writes the rules and regulations to implement those laws. Understanding this distinction is crucial. When you see a question about the commission's power, ask yourself, does this action protect the public from a broker's misconduct? If the answer is yes, it's likely something the commission does. Now let's talk about you and your license. To become a broker in Colorado, you need to meet a few key requirements. You must be at least 18 years old, complete 168 hours of required education from an approved school, and pass both the national and state portions of the broker exam. After you pass, you must submit your application, get your fingerprints taken for a background check, and obtain errors and omissions insurance. This E&O insurance is mandatory for all active licensees in Colorado. It's like malpractice insurance for brokers, protecting you if you make a mistake that causes a client a financial loss. Once you have your license, you need to maintain it. Your broker license is good for 3 years and expires on December 31st of the 3rd year. To renew it, you must complete 24 hours of continuing education during that 3-year cycle. These 24 hours must include 12 hours of the annual commission update course. That's 4 hours for each of the 3 years. The other 12 hours can be in elective courses approved by the commission. If you fail to renew on time, your license becomes inactive. You can't practice real estate with an inactive license, so staying on top of your renewal dates and continuing education is critical. As a new broker, you will likely start as an associate broker under an employing broker. Your employing broker has a very important job to supervise you. They are responsible for your actions as a licensee. This means they must provide a high level of supervision for all new brokers with less than 2 years of experience. This includes reviewing your contracts, being available to answer questions, and providing ongoing training. The commission takes this very seriously. An employing broker must have a written office policy manual that outlines the rules and procedures for everyone in the firm. This ensures consistency and compliance with state laws. A memory tip for license renewal. Think March 24th, 12. Your license is good for 3 years. You need 24 hours of continuing education to renew it, and 12 of those hours must be the annual commission update. For employing brokers, remember their job is to teach. They train, educate, assist, correct, and are ultimately held responsible for their associate brokers. Understanding these requirements for getting and keeping your license is fundamental. The exam will test you on these numbers and responsibilities, so make sure you know them inside and out. In real estate, it's crucial to know who you represent. This is what we call your brokerage relationship. Colorado law requires you to disclose this relationship in writing to any consumer you work with. The main types of relationships are seller's agent, buyer's agent, transaction broker, and customer. As an agent, you are an advocate for your client. You must promote their interests with the utmost good faith, loyalty, and fidelity. You owe them confidentiality and must disclose all material facts you know about the property. You are on their team, fighting for their best interests. A transaction broker is different. This is the default relationship in Colorado if you don't have a written agreement stating otherwise. A transaction broker does not represent either the buyer or the seller. Instead, you are a neutral facilitator. You help both parties with the paperwork and the process to get the deal done, but you don't advocate for either side. You must still be fair and honest with everyone, disclose material defects, and handle the paperwork properly. However, you cannot give advice or disclose confidential information that would weaken one party's negotiating position, like telling the seller that the buyer is willing to pay more. What about a customer? A customer is someone you don't have a brokerage relationship with. For example, if you are the seller's agent, the buyer who comes to your open house without an agent is your customer. You must treat them with honesty and fairness, but you don't owe them the same duties you owe your client. You must disclose any known material facts about the property, but you don't provide them with advice or advocate for them. The most important rule is to disclose your relationship status early and in writing, using the brokerage disclosure to buyer or brokerage disclosure to seller form. This prevents confusion and protects everyone involved. Here's a memory cue. Think of an agent as an advocate. They are on one team. Think of a transaction broker as a traffic cop. They direct the flow of the deal for both sides but don't take a side. The exam will give you scenarios and ask you to identify the correct relationship or the duties owed. For example, if a buyer asks you, "What do you think I should offer?" and you are a transaction broker, the correct answer is that you cannot advise them on price. You can only provide them with data on what similar homes have sold for. Paperwork is, honestly, a huge part of real estate. And here in Colorado, we use standardized forms that are approved by the Real Estate Commission. The most important one you really need to master is the Contract to Buy and Sell Real Estate, or CBS. This is the main purchase agreement that's used for residential properties. You need to know this contract backward and forward. It outlines every detail of the transaction: the price, closing date, deadlines for inspections and loan approval, what items are included with the home, and what happens if one party defaults. The exam is definitely going to test you heavily on the different sections and deadlines within the CBS. The CBS is packed with dates and deadlines. There's actually a whole section just dedicated to them. For example, there's a deadline for the buyer to apply for their loan, a deadline to get an inspection done, and a deadline to object to any issues found in that inspection, and these dates are legally binding. If a buyer misses their loan objection deadline, they could lose their right to terminate the contract and get their earnest money back if their financing falls through. As a broker, your job is to help your client really understand these deadlines and keep track of them. The dates and deadlines section is basically your roadmap for the entire transaction. Another key concept in the CBS is the idea of inclusions and exclusions. This section spells out exactly what personal property is included in the sale. The rule of thumb is, if it's attached to the house, a fixture, it stays. If it's not attached, meaning it's personal property, it goes with the seller unless it's specifically listed otherwise. The CBS has checkboxes for common items like the refrigerator, washer, and dryer. If your buyer wants the seller's patio furniture, you've got to write it into the contract. Clarity here is what prevents disputes at closing, so always be specific to avoid any misunderstandings about who gets what. A great way to study the CBS is to get a blank copy and fill it out for a fictional property. Go through each section and really try to understand its purpose. For the deadlines, maybe create a timeline or even a flowchart. Here's a memory tip for the contract. CBS stands for Clearly Broker's Story. It tells the complete story of the deal from start to finish. The exam will ask you about specific clauses like the appraisal provision or the inspection resolution. So, know what each part does and how it protects your client. Mastering the CBS isn't just about passing the test, it's about being a competent broker who can protect their clients' interests. As a real estate broker, you'll be handling other people's money, specifically earnest money deposits. The commission has very strict rules about this, and honestly, they're a major focus on the exam. When you receive earnest money, you must deposit it into a trust account, sometimes called an escrow account, within 3 business days of acceptance of the contract. A trust account is a special bank account used only for holding client funds. You can never mix your own money with client money. This is called commingling, and it's a serious violation that can cost you your license. The employing broker is responsible for the firm's trust account. They must be a signatory on the account and are responsible for all funds. The account must be in a bank or recognized depository in Colorado and must be clearly identifiable as an escrow or trust account. For example, the account name might be ABC Realty Inc. Trust Account. The broker must also keep detailed records for every transaction. This includes a journal, a ledger, and a monthly bank reconciliation. These records have to show exactly where every dollar came from and where it went. The commission can audit these records at any time. What happens to the earnest money if a deal falls through? Well, it depends on the contract. If the buyer terminates the contract based on a contingency, like a bad inspection or not being able to get a loan, they're usually entitled to get their earnest money back. If the buyer defaults on the contract, the seller may be entitled to keep the earnest money as damages. If there's a dispute over the earnest money, the broker cannot decide who gets it. The broker must hold the money in the trust account until the parties sign a written release or until a court orders them to release it. A memory tip for trust accounts: think 3D for deposit within 3 days. For record keeping, remember that the employing broker is the key to compliance. They keep the records, are responsible for the escrow account, and protect your client's money. The exam loves questions about trust account violations. Watch for scenarios involving commingling, mixing funds, or conversion, which is using client funds for personal use. Always remember, it's not your money. Your job is to be a trustworthy guardian of those funds until the transaction closes or terminates according to the contract. The closing, also known as the settlement, is the final step in the real estate transaction. This is where ownership of the property is officially transferred from the seller to the buyer. In Colorado, closings are typically conducted by a title company, which acts as a neutral third party. The closing agent prepares the settlement statements, gathers all the necessary documents, and makes sure all the money is distributed correctly. As a broker, you'll attend the closing to support your client and review the documents to make sure everything is accurate. The settlement statement is a critical document. It's a detailed list of all the costs and credits for both the buyer and the seller. You'll see items like the purchase price, loan amount, closing costs, and prorations. Prorations are expenses that are split between the buyer and seller based on the closing date. For example, property taxes are often prorated. If the seller has already paid the property taxes for the entire year, the buyer will have to credit the seller for the portion of the year they will own the home. The exam will expect you to understand how these debits and credits work. Who pays for what? This is a common source of exam questions. Typically, the seller pays for the owner's title insurance policy, which protects the buyer's ownership rights. The seller also pays the real estate commission and their share of the prorations. The buyer usually pays for the cost of their new loan, the lender's title insurance policy, which protects the lender, the appraisal, and their share of the prorations. These are just customs though. Everything is negotiable and must be specified in the contract to buy and sell. Always refer back to the contract to see what the parties agreed to. A simple way to remember debits and credits. A debit is money you owe. A credit is money you receive. For the exam, practice some simple closing statement problems. For prorations, remember the acronym SAD for seller always debited for the closing day. This means the seller is considered to have owned the property on the day of closing, and they are responsible for that day's expenses. Understanding the flow of money at closing is essential for guiding your clients and for passing the state exam. Colorado has some unique real estate laws that you won't find in many other states. One of the biggest is water rights. In the arid West, water is a precious resource, and it's treated as a separate property right. This means owning land doesn't automatically mean you own the right to use the water on or under that land. Water rights can be bought and sold separately from the land. The contract to buy and sell has a section dedicated to water rights where the seller must disclose what, if any, water rights are being transferred with the property. You need to know the basics of different types of water rights like wells and ditch rights. Another important Colorado-specific topic is the Homeowners Association, or HOA. Many properties in Colorado are part of an HOA, which has its own rules and fees. The seller is required to provide the buyer with a full set of HOA documents, including the bylaws, financial statements, and meeting minutes. The buyer then has a period to review these documents. If the buyer is not happy with the rules or the financial health of the HOA, they have the right to terminate the contract and get their earnest money back. You must know the deadlines and procedures related to the HOA document review process. Colorado also has specific disclosure requirements. One you will be tested on is the methamphetamine disclosure. If a property was ever used as a meth lab and has not been properly remediated according to state standards, the seller must disclose this fact to any potential buyer. This is a serious health and safety issue, and the disclosure requirement is strict. You also need to be aware of the source of water disclosure and any potential oil and gas activity in the area. Your job as a broker is to ensure your client receives all legally required disclosures. To remember these special topics, think of Colorado's unique landscape. The mountains and dry climate make water rights critical. The planned communities make HOA rules important. And unfortunately, the meth disclosure is a public safety rule you can't forget. The exam will test your knowledge of these specific state issues. While they might not be part of every transaction, you are expected to be an expert on them. Pay close attention to these sections in your studies, as they are a key part of what makes the Colorado exam different from the national test. You've put in the hours, you've studied the material, and now it's time to focus on passing the exam. My best advice is to concentrate on the topics that carry the most weight. The state portion of the exam is heavily focused on Colorado contracts, brokerage relationships, and the rules of the Real Estate Commission. You absolutely must know the contract to buy and sell inside and out. Spend extra time reviewing the deadlines, the different provisions, and how to handle common scenarios. If you master the contract, you are well on your way to passing. When you're taking the exam, read every question carefully. The test writers often use tricky wording to see if you really understand the concepts. Look out for words like always, never, except, and must. A single word can change the entire meaning of a question. If you're unsure about an answer, try to eliminate the choices you know are wrong. This increases your odds of picking the correct one. Don't spend too much time on any single question. If you're stuck, mark it and come back to it later. Pacing yourself is key to finishing the exam on time. On the day before the exam, don't cram. Your brain needs time to rest and consolidate everything you've learned. Do a light review of your notes or some flashcards, but then relax. Eat a good meal, get a good night's sleep, and make sure you know where the testing center is. On exam day, arrive early, be prepared with your required identification, and walk in with a positive attitude. Confidence is a powerful tool. You have prepared for this moment, and you have the knowledge to succeed. Trust in your preparation and your ability to reason through the questions. My final message to you is this: you can do it. Every single licensed broker in Colorado has been where you are right now. They all passed this same test. Building a successful career in real estate is like building a house. It requires a strong plan, the right tools, and a lot of hard work. Passing this exam is laying the foundation. Stay focused, believe in yourself, and go show them what you know. I look forward to seeing you out there helping people achieve their real estate dreams. Good luck.